Hello, chat. This is Outer Wilds music. I'm in a bit of a mood today. It is quite spacey. This is Timber Hearth, the Timber Hearth track. I've been listening to Outer. Look, hold on. I got my fucking desktop background. I got all my desktop backgrounds actually. Just wait. How do I do this without showing things? Oh, that's OBS. Look at all these. Oh my god. They're animated too, which is kind of cool. I used a wallpaper engine. Oh, it's so pretty. But yeah, I'm in a mood. Very Outer Wildsy mood. But I'm like at peace, you know what I mean? That's like the crazy part. I'm gonna get my friend to play it, and I'm gonna get to watch them play the whole thing in on stream, or like not on stream. We're gonna do it through Discord, and they'll play it, and I'll watch, and I won't say a single fucking thing, because I'm not gonna be a backseater at all. That's gonna be hard, because Outer Wilds is the type of game you really want to backseat and you want to explain everything, but it's also like you will absolutely ruin it, so you can't. And then, because I haven't played the DLC yet, because the DLC is supposedly kind of spooky, we're gonna probably play the DLC together, and it'll be the first time both of us going in blind to play it, which will be fun. But I've been in a mood. I've been drawing. I've been doodling more little Outer Wilds things. I was doodling some stuff before stream. So I'm in a great mood. But we're here to chill today and read some alternate universe. Today will be chapter 25, which is another long-ass chapter. So we'll probably have to take a break halfway through, for my sake. Still currently drawing YWDMP Dave. I did see that doodle. Is that the one you're working on, or are you just doing a series of doodles? I got to have a watch party with a friend for the first time ever. It was so fun watching a show with someone equally as obsessed with it as I am. Yeah, I love experiencing stuff with people like that. Series, I understand. Oh my goodness. I'm quite tired today. I also, once again, was writing the summary about 2 minutes before before going live. Most because I was playing Minecraft with a friend beforehand, but I didn't get time today. Speaking of Minecraft, I started a single-player world today. Ooh, fun. I always try to start single-player worlds, or I used to try. But it's kind of hard for me to stay motivated in a single-player world. It can be a very peaceful thing to do, though. Because sometimes you just need to play Minecraft. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just need to play Minecraft. And you just play like crazy for like, 5 days. Then you get your Minecraft fix and you're good, right? Yeah, Lifty, I get that. I think there's something like kind of existentially lonely about single-player Minecraft worlds. Am I crazy? I can get like really lonely when I'm playing. Like it's an interesting experience and it's a fun experience, but like there's something very lonely about them. Just like building like and I try to go away from the mindset of like I have to be productive, but the idea that I'm putting hours and hours and tons and tons of time and work and building, you know, all these elaborate and amazing things, only for it to be like just me, you know? Like, how many thousands, hundreds of thousands of Minecraft worlds out there are like these beautiful pieces of art that we'll never get to see because it's just on somebody's save? And like, how many people have like invested hundreds of thousands of hours into their huge elaborate Minecraft world that they know like so intimately, and it's something that only they'll be able, like only they will experience, you know? And for some people that's like a treasure, like, right, like that's like something, you know, that they get to keep and they get to hold. But there's also like something sad about that, I think. But not sad, like sad in like a melancholy way, you know? Like just knowing you're the only person in that world is such an eerie feeling. Yeah, I think so. Maybe I'm thinking too hard about it. I watched like 3-4 video essays on Outer Wilds, and now I'm thinking about video games, and I cry. Discussing single-player Minecraft with Outer Wilds as in the background. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I think Outer Wilds is such in like the same degree, not same degree, but like has some very similar elements to me. Personally, my video game that changed me was Pathologic. I watched a video essay on Pathologic because I didn't play, or was it what was the really big video essay that everybody loves on Pathologic? It was video, the H-Bomber guy video on Pathologic, which I've seen like 100 times. I love that video essay. But I never played it. You need to play it. He barely touched the surface. Really? Wow. I might look into it. I kind of, if a game is difficult to play, because the main thing that I remember about the video essay, or one of the main things, is that the game is like difficult in like a purposeful way, but like in an unintuitive way. Like it's like in a way that can be like kind of not fun, and that can kind of bother me. It's not actually that difficult. He lies. Really? I haven't played any games for like years because none of them are the same as Minecraft or Terraria or Subnautica, and it overstimulates me, so I give up. Yeah, Outer Wilds. I love Outer Wilds. Outer Wilds is the culmination of a knowledge-based video game in so many ways, and it's like my favorite time in Outer Wilds. Because, like, the first, like, 5 hours of Outer Wilds, I was so fucking confused. I was so, like, confused, and you get so much information, and you're also still, like, I'm bad at the whole space travel shit, so I was still, like, trying to navigate my ship, blah, 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 blah. And there's just so much going on. And it's really fucking confusing. But then, like, once you hit, like, the 5 hour mark, for me at least, I hit, like, the 5 to 8 hour to 10 hour, around then, and I finally started piecing things together, and, like, when all the knowledge that you've accumulated from all these different branching areas, you start to put together, and then you start solving things, it's the best feeling. Oh my gosh. All the revelations that you're able to have, like, being able to finally, land on that one planet or not planet, but land on that one place, and oh my god, when I finally found the solution to get into one of the end game areas, and I like put that together myself based on knowledge that I had accumulated and was able to puzzle together myself. It wasn't like there was a video that I watched that was talking about kind of comparing almost like Hollow Knight, right? In Hollow Knight, there's like a ledge in Green Path, and you can't jump to it normally. You can only really, what you're supposed to get is you're supposed to wait, come back when you get the Mothwing Cloak after you fight Hornet, and you get that upgrade, and then you can jump over it and you can leap over it. But if you know that you can pogo jump from an enemy and gain some air, you can actually get up there before you get the Mothwing Cloak. But you have to know that. You have to have that knowledge, right? Outer Wilds is like that. You never get a single upgrade in the game. There's only one thing that you technically have to do to progress. Like one piece of information you have to do. And even then, no, you do have to do that. But like once you have that, it's all about like you can beat the game like within the first hour if you're that smart. Most people aren't, but it's all based around what you know and what you learn from the game. And it doesn't give you any pointers, it doesn't give you any goals, it is all just fueled by the drive to answer questions and to figure out what's going on. And that's so fucking cool. That there's now, and I'm somebody I'm a very goal-oriented person, goal-oriented gamer, and I had to kind of look past that because I was always in the ship's log, like trying to, you know, check every checkbox and you know, not every checkbox, but like try to fill out all the information. But eventually you just have to kind of sit and you have to like stop and like smell the roses, and you have to like realize like there was one video I said that I watched that was like, you can't save the universe in a day, and I was like, fuck, holy fuck. Like obviously, like I don't know, it hit a little different. And I just love it. I love the game so much. It was such a beautiful exploration. Anyway, I love it so much. And I'm watching people's POVs to fill in holes. Also realizing that there are so many people that are so much smarter than me. There's I watched some of Joseph Anderson's playthrough. I haven't finished it, but him putting together things like so immediately and like instantly, I'm like, okay, I'm stupid. I think I'm just stupid. But so it is kind of funny, but I beat the game, and there are some moments that I still feel so smart. There's still sometimes where I feel so fucking smart. I had to get pointers on some places, and I had to look up guides for a few little things. Not really much. There was only one puzzle I had to look up a solution for. And even then, I don't really think that was a puzzle. I think that was just the game that was like the one point in the game where I was like, this wasn't delivered or this wasn't communicated that well. But outside of that, fucking amazing. So well done. Anyways, okay. It's Homestuck time. Let's look into chapter 24. We're going to read the summary, and then we will hop right into this massive chapter. See you later, Art. Have a lovely rest of your night. Alright. So, again, we're not going to summarize the whole chapter, and also last chapter had a lot. But essentially, Karkat was able to get off of the moon, which is where he was, and in doing so, he ended up crash landing onto Earth, and bringing 2 of the astronauts that were stuck up on Earth with him. But he is now a little tiny, little baby, little guy, little tiny white hummingbird. Similarly to how Solux had to change his form upon like losing a lot of power upon getting really close to dying. Karkat had to do the same thing. So Karkat's little form is a tiny little guy hummingbird. And Solux like threatens the 2 astronauts of like, you're not gonna, mention him to anybody. And then he takes himself, Birdcat, Dave, and Rose all back to Roxy's place. And that's kind of where we end. So, yeah. And now we are on chapter 25, which is Hand Me My Shovel, I'm Going In. And we're going to get started. I'm going to switch over to my fantasy lo-fi. I just wanted to listen to Outer Wilds for a little bit. Do this one. Alright. Hopefully, volume's all fine there. I usually keep it pretty low where you can't even really hear it, but I just like to have it in the background. Okay. Chapter 25. Here we go. He's so tiny, and I think I'm gonna die, Dave says, deadpan as he holds Karkat up to his face with Karkat perched on Dave's finger. An entirely valid response, you agree, and your mom snaps a picture with her phone. Why is it that when there's something so small and cute, you see it and part of you wants to eat it? Your mom wonders. That's how I feel about most things, Terezi agrees. Dave gives both of them a wary look and takes a step away, with Karkat safely still on his hand. Karkat makes the smallest little hummingbird peep, and you're pretty sure your heart melts. It's not your fault. You're not made of stone. I think I'm going to see what's going on at NASA, your mother declares, and wanders off with Terezi following her. You don't know how she's going to do that, but it's almost certainly illegal, so you're just not going to ask. Hey, I'm in the kitchen, Soluk shouts from across the house. You gesture for Dave to go first, so he carries Karkat across the house into the kitchen. When you get there, Solux is just landing with a tiny saucer in hand from one of your teacups. Solux places the saucer on the kitchen island and then pulls out an ornate bottle out of his chest. He sinks his fangs into the cork, pulls it out, and spits it across the room. He pours a little measure of it into a saucer, and you get the moment when he realizes that he's going to have to find that cork again to seal the bottle once more. That looks familiar, like the drink you gave Karkat to recover from Famine's work. And at the club, you note as you peer at it. That's because that's exactly what it is, Soluk says flatly, and psionically picks the cork up and puts it back on the bottle. Tell me what it is. It's gotta be something powerful to help him, right? Dave asks eagerly. Okay, so when all the gods suddenly weren't, we demons may have realized that a lot of things were suddenly not as guarded as they usually are. A few enterprising demons may have creatively acquired a few things, Solux explains. And what is this? You ask, and watch as Karkat looks repeatedly from the saucer of something stolen to Solux and back again. You've never seen a hummingbird look judgmental before, but he's managing it. Nectar of the gods. Look, it's not my fault the Greek pantheon didn't have people guarding Olympus in ways that actually stop us. Besides, it's good for anything directly made by a god. Angels were created by one. Karkat himself wasn't, but he's not that many steps removed. It'd work more if he was an original angel, but whatever. Anyway, hummingbirds drink nectar, so it's fitting, Solux explains. There's a few seconds, but Karkat does flutter down to the countertop, and then awkwardly flutter and hop onto the saucer. Dave is already filming this. Oh, shit, we need to tell the others how we found him, Solux realizes and pulls his phone out. No, don't tell them, Dave gasps. What? You don't mean that, Soluk says in surprise. I absolutely do. Don't tell them. We can take Karkat down to June's tomorrow and be like, we found Karkat, and then, surprise, bird. Dave laughs. Karkat looks up from drinking the nectar to give Dave a judgmental look. Oh, come on, she's always pranking us, Dave points out. She might actually strangle you if you do that, you warn him. Might is charitable, Solux grumbles. I can't believe you're agreeing to this, you say in surprise to Solux. Usually he's able to talk Dave out of ideas as terrible as these, but seemingly not this time. Me neither, Solux says, obviously annoyed. You suppose he must be more in favor of bringing June back if he's going along with it, despite his protest. Normally you'd be against this, but it is interesting enough that you're willing to just watch and see what's going to happen. So he really won't just get better on his own, you ask, shifting the conversation back to Karkat. Angels need permission to get their bodies back, but there's no one giving him permission now, unless that was devolved to other angels, and then that's not something that we want to ask. But lacking any divine intervention we can, Soluk shrugs. Feed him by doing Karkat things, Dave fills in. Yeah, if you have faith that he'll get better and exhibit his traits and stuff, it should work. This just helps, Soluk says as he waves at the saucer. But why was it so much easier for you? You've died and come back loads. Or, I guess it wasn't easy, but you were like that because you were out of energy. We didn't have to do anything for you, though, Dave points out. Well, my maker's not dead, for one, so I could get energy there. Also, Hell never had the same bureaucratic rules about getting your body back. You just got it. With Hell out of action, it's all done up here, so it's a little weaker. Besides, I had stuff being channeled to me just fine, Solok says vaguely. Do you know what you're made of? Or do you know what you're made of, then? You ask in surprise. On the table, Karkat perks up a little from his saucer of nectar and starts squeaking and flapping about. No one asked you, bird brain, Solok snaps at him. Karkat's little body puffs up and he pokes an unexpectedly long tongue out of his beak at Solok's, which of course only escalates to Dave trying to take more pictures of Karkat's tiny bird form. You decide to oblige Dave's dumb idea to not tell anyone that you found Karkat, if only because you kind of want to see June try to kill him. You spend the rest of the evening trying to work out how to feed Karkat's core makeup, or whatever you want to call it. It's hard to know exactly what makes him up as a person. Certainly, you would say that you know Karkat quite well by now, and you could describe him to others, but how could you ever be objective enough to not put your own interpretation on things? You see Karkat as you see him. You're pretty sure that Dave and Solok see him differently. Which one of you would be right? Could any of you ever be? At one point in the evening, you sit down at your desk with Karkat using the top of your laptop screen as a perch. I should really catch you up on everything since you've been gone. I did get to watch some of what you were doing when you were away. My vision came back somewhat, you tell him. You cover your discovery of him being missing, the murder of Equius that set your mother off. You tell him about hearing him rickroll Cronus, which makes Karkat hide his head under his wings in embarrassment. You explain about tracing your way back to Eridan, although you go a little light on the details of just how much you threatened him and hurt him. That likely is not something that will fuel Karkat. He looks notably sad when you explain that Eridan is dead, as much as a hummingbird can look sad anyway. He sold you out, Karkat, you point out, a little offended on his behalf, but he just seems sad. Still, after that, a bunch of suspicious men in suits escorted us out to the... You stop talking as Karkat peeps and chirps, fluttering his tiny wings so hard he nearly falls off your laptop. I really wish you could talk, but... yes and no, you say, and indicate the left side of your laptop as yes, and the right for no. Have you seen those men in suits before? You ask, and Karkat immediately flutters over to the left side. He has. Do you think they're suspicious too? You ask, and Karkat emphatically taps his beak on the left side of the screen. I think they're connected to some god, some weather god. Do you know anything about that? You question him, eager for answers. Karkat just looks at you, his head tilted to the side, and then flutters to the no side. Your shoulders slump. You'd really been hoping for answers. Hey, Rose, stop hogging my beloved bird boyfriend. Benevolently bestow him upon your brother instead, Dave says, sticking his head around your doorway. Did you just start talking and realize you were doing alliteration and then just ran with it? You ask Dave suspiciously. But perhaps, Dave answers. Perhaps, you repeat. There is a tiny tapping sound that turns out to be Karkat bonking his beak on the edge of your laptop. You assume that's the closest he can get to face palming without any palms. He shakes his head, squeaks at you, and takes to the air in a blur of white wings. He flies off to Dave and makes an uncoordinated land on his chest. Whoa, careful there. Huh, I guess hummingbird wings work a little differently to your angel wings. Probably takes some getting used to, right? Dave says gently as he carefully holds Karkat up in his cupped palms. He watches Karkat makes tiny bird squeaks at Dave, and the look of adoration and wonder on his face spreads a smile on yours. You know what Solix and Dave have is a relationship, but it's very much two players on the same team. They work together and look out for each other. It's sweet and nice for both of them, but both you and Dave have been quite sheltered through your lives. You couldn't really bring people home, and there was always the matter of your mother. Going off to college was the first time he had the freedom to get into anything else with anyone. You're happy for Karkat too. Both of them deserve to be happy, and it's hilarious how simultaneously overjoyed and disbelieving they both are about each other. Dave's holding him up now and chattering away to him so blatantly smitten. You did have more questions for Karkat, more things to tell him, but you don't have the heart to break up this little conversation. All of you agree that Karkat shouldn't be left alone in the evening. He's having trouble perching on things for long periods of time, so you've quickly knitted him a little nest out of yarn you found under your bed. You placed it on the bedside table, ready for Karkat to sleep there, and as you sleep in your bed. Dave, however, feels that Karkat should sleep in his room, seeing as he and Solux are the ones, quote, actually dating him, which is absurd. He's a bird. What difference does who he dates when he's human-shaped make? You are not backing down. Dave is not backing down. Solux is, you quote, Switzerland in this, stop asking me. A compromise is found. You sleep in Dave's room, but closest to the bedside table, and Karkat's little knitted nest. Solux lounges on top of a bookcase with his phone in the dark. The dim light from the screen in his eyes, the only illumination in the room. You're used to hearing Solux move around the house at night. Usually he sticks close to Dave, but even when you were growing up, Solux would still sometimes come check on you. Which is to say that him moving around when you're on edge of sleep is not alarming at all, and wouldn't have stirred you to wakefulness if you hadn't heard him speak. Hey, wake up, he says low and quiet. There's a small hummingbird squeak. Shh, look, You helped me. You helped with me when I was stuck like this, with your faith that I'd be stronger in everything I'm made to be. So I'm gonna return the favor, so we're even. Solix says, just above a whisper. You keep your eyes shut and listen. It's not that I didn't think you'd make it. I know you were just getting yourself out of danger long before my maker was even a thought in his head, let alone me being around. It's just, Scratch can do things. You could have lost. I could have lost you. Again. Solix whispers. There's a soft squeak and a flutter of feathers. No, shut up. That's not it. That's not what I was saying. I don't think you're weak. I hate you, so I obviously don't. But I wanted to protect you. I tried so much shit to get up there, get someone else there for you, or for me, because I couldn't leave you like that. I know what it's like being left at the mercy of some psychopath without any... I know if you're dealing with someone who's creative, that there's no end to the shit that they can put you through. And it hurts to think about you like that. I wanted to protect you, even if you could have survived it or gotten out on your own, because you're not on your own. Because I hate you. Solix says that last part in a rush. There's a flutter of feathers and a breeze against your face. Really? Look, we're even. You gave me faith. I give you protectiveness and emotional vulnerability. Whatever the part of you is phrased as. We're even. Don't peck the horns. Get off, you fucking little... Solix hisses, and there's another flutter of wings. There, we're square. I think I'm coming out of hives from that. Solix mutters, and you hear him bound away. Yeah, Karkat, it's not like he likes you or anything. You shouldn't laugh at Solix. He'll know you're awake if you do. When you wake up, you can't see Solix, but more alarmingly, you can't see Karkat. Dave, where's Karkat? You hiss, shaking your brother awake. Dave groans and squints at you as he opens his eyes, reaching up to his headboard where his shades are hanging. He puts them on and sits up with a yawn. What? He mumbles. Karkat, he's not here, you repeat. Dave looks around. Solix ain't here, or ain't either, but look, Dave says, pointing up. You look at the skylight and you can just see a sliver of Solix sitting off to the side of it, his elbows, knees, and tail just visible at the edge of the glass. Dave climbs up there first, with you second, and pushes the skylight open. Sup? Solix asks, looking down at you. Where's Karkat at? Dave asks Solix, and he points away from the house. There's a flash of white through the air, and you gasp to see a little bird flapping around your house, far bigger than a hummingbird. They're awake, Solix shouts, and the bird curves in the air, changing course towards you. As he gets closer, you see he's far bigger than yesterday. His all-white wings flutter and spread out, slowing him down as he lands on Solix's knee. He's a little parrot, you say in shock. A canur, I think. I like the green cheek ones, but all white. Oh, that's Dave. A canur, I think, like the green cheek ones, but all white, Dave says in wonder, and reaches a finger out to gently stroke Karkat's chest feathers. Karkat trills a little and turns his head to properly look at Dave. Oh, fuck, he's too cute. I need to go get my phone and take 1,000 pictures. BRB, Dave gasps and ducks back into his room. So, I guess what you bet him worked then, you say innocently to Solix, who freezes. He says as Karkat looks up at him. The nectar. He's a bigger bird now, so I assume that's progress, you say lightly, but you know he's wondering if you know somehow. Not that you'll let him know. Right, yeah, Solix says awkwardly. Dave pops up again with his phone and immediately starts taking pictures. He encourages Karkat to spread his wings so he can photograph his flight feathers fully extended. He gets a picture of Karkat's little bird feet, his face close up to the camera. He's having a great time. Why is he not a hummingbird anymore? You just became a progressively larger snake, you ask. I'm not sure a giant hummingbird would work flight-wise. Dave points out. True, plus angels always add extra steps to make things difficult, Solix says casually and pets Karkat's back. Karkat promptly turns his head around and bites him. Solix hisses and tries to put a hand back only to find that Karkat isn't letting go and is in fact hanging on with his beak and scrabbling for a hold with his feet too. Is this meant to hurt? Solix asks mockingly, though you can see he's not a fan of the feeling. Karkat opens his beak to squawk at Solix and promptly loses his grip, falling off in a graceless flutter of feathers. Solix, of course, laughs at him. Come here, Dave says, and holds his hand out for Karkat to climb on. Karkat does, and Dave pulls his hand up to his face and very tentatively strokes down Karkat's back. He's still a smaller bird, but he's not so terrifyingly fragile as he was when he was a hummingbird. Does this mean he's just going to be a series of successfully larger birds until he gets his power back before going back to normal? You ask Solix. That makes sense, he answers, although you suspect that he doesn't know for sure. So what? Canur to chicken to swan to cassowary? Dave wonders and scritches the feathers on Karkat's cheek, making him tip his head to the side, his little birdie eyes shut in clear delight at the sensation. What's a cassowary? You ask. Basically a dinosaur, Dave says, pauses for a moment, and then gasps. Wait, does that mean he's going to be a feathered dinosaur at the end? That'd be so cool. If he gets to dinosaur, I'd be seriously pissed, Solix says flatly, and you believe him. His envy over the idea is palpable. Dave ducks inside again, and Karkat flutters off his hand to land on the back of Dave's computer chair. Dave pulls his wardrobe open and starts taking clothes from the inside of it, tossing them across the room to his bed. We should get ready to go see June. She's gonna flip, Dave says eagerly. Karkat looks at the clothes on the bed, then at Dave, and promptly flies and lands on the handle of Dave's bedroom door. Unfortunately for him, he doesn't have anything near the weight required to move the handle. Excuse me. Is there any way I can talk you out of this incredibly dumb idea? Solix asks hopefully, leaning in through the window. Nope, Dave answers him brightly and pulls his shirt off. Karkat squawks, and Dave seems to realize that just because he's physically a bird right now doesn't mean that said bird is not still Karkat and may have thoughts about a shirtless Dave Lalonde. Well, I should go get dressed as well. I'm sure you can be trusted in the rest of the house, Karkat. Maybe just stay away from Mom, just in case. You advise him. You hold your finger out to Karkat, who happily hops up onto it. You open the door, and you let both him and you out at the same time. Before you get back to your room, Karkat flies off with a birdie screech, and you retire to your own bedroom to change. You brush your teeth and wash your face, dress warmly, and meet Dave and Solix downstairs. It takes you a moment to notice Karkat's presence, as he has decided to tuck himself in the neck of Dave's hoodie, and is just peeking out with his little bird feet holding onto the neck. It's unfairly adorable, and you take a picture. The three of you let yourselves out of the front door. You assume that Dave or Solix had already told your mother where you're going, or at least that you're going out. She can always call you if there's a problem. The field's still pretty strong. Uber really can't see us in this. Dave sighs as he stares at his phone. You look up at the barrier around your house that is barely perceptible to the eye right now, but still very much in effect. Do we need to get an Uber? You ask, and a thought steals over you. If this is your way of asking me to teleport you there, you can get lost. I've been all over the country the past 24 hours with you two. I'm not doing more. Solix grumbles. It's okay, Dave says sympathetically. I was actually thinking about that car you have stashed in your void. We could drive, couldn't we? You ask. You and Dave don't know how to drive, but you assume that Solix can if he has that car. He probably doesn't have a license, but that's another issue. We could. I don't usually drive it or anything, but I can, Solix says in obvious surprise. He clearly hadn't thought of it. Can we? That'd be so cool, Dave says eagerly. Sure, we can do that, Solix says softly. Aw, how sweet. You keep your observations about the pair of them to yourself and lead your way through the woods and eventually down the road. You don't pay much attention to the chatter of the boys behind you, or the occasional bird noises that mix into that. Instead, you're very curious to see what's going to happen when you get to June's place. When you reach the road, you all look at Solix expectantly. You've thought before that him taking things out of the void looked like a magic trick, but you're a little disappointed that this one seems to happen with nothing more than a blur of red, and then suddenly a car where there was no car before. You were hoping for some mind-melting physics effect, not a cartoon smudge frame that was gone in an instant. You watch in amusement as Solix walks around the car to get into the passenger side, realizes what he's doing, and then slides over the hood of the car like he'd meant to do that the whole time. Dave hops in the back and spreads his arms across the back of the seat once he's buckled in, as if you and Solux are nothing more than his chauffeurs. From the grin on his face, you think that's the exact idea he's trying to get across, too. Solux turns the key in the ignition, and the car comes to life with a mechanical purr. The radio clicks on, and you see that it's set to 6.66 DM instead of AM or FM. The last strains of some song are fading, and a slightly slow and drawn-out voice comes on. Hey there, welcome back. Got a song request vibe coming right from the blood push of our very own number 2, so I've got just the thing. Even if it ain't mine. Word, the voice says lazily. Fucking Sarava. Solux snorts in amusement and adjusts the seat. Despite his words, his expression is fond. Someone you know? You ask. Runs the station. Takes psychic requests. Sometimes does news. Solux answers distractedly as he fixes the rearview mirror. Clearly, whoever drove this car last wasn't him. Interesting. Wait, he psychically knows what you want to play? Dave asks eagerly. They know, yeah. Solux corrects him. On the radio, a song starts to play, and a few seconds in it seems that Solux recognizes it and snorts in amusement. I'm not singing. I also don't know this song. This song goes out to my good friends, especially the ones I had before the Grammy nominations of 2003, and all the girls from back in high school who actually spoke to me even though I was a fat kid and a marching band geek. Solux gets the car going with a quick check over the shoulder to be sure nothing is coming. I hope this song finds you well, and I hope that you're doing fucking swell, and I hope you're back up, and if you've ever been down, I hope you got the fuck out of our hometown. Solux snickers to himself as you drive along. So, how do you request something then? Dave asks curiously. Okay, if you want something specific, you have to hold it clearly in your heart or whatever, and Sarava can pick it up on that. They won't take every request, of course, and they kind of have a bias towards the more powerful. Solux starts. They said number 2. Is that you? You mentioned before that there's only one person who outranks you. Dave interrupts. Yeah, hopefully it stays that way. Solux adds that last part under his breath. So you specifically requested this, you ask, seeing as Solux has lost the thread of what he was talking about. No. So they tend to go off of a feel for the mood of the people who are listening, and they know a lot about a lot of people. This is just them skimming off of my vibe of fuck where I'm from, I'm glad I'm not there, and no one else should be there either. They're just being funny. Solix explains. That's so cool. Let me... Dave starts and reaches forward. Karkat flutters off of Dave's hoodie and onto the back of Solux's chair at the movement. Dave is reaching for the volume control, but Solux smacks his hand away. Hey, nope. If you're not driving, you don't get to touch the dials. You want to play with them? Then you drive. That's the rule. Solux reprimands him. You know, I can't count how many times I've heard people say, be proud of where you're from. You're going to put us on the map. But where the hell were you back in the day? Back in the day, no one came to see us, so we got the hell out of there. So there, you have it. That's so cool. Also, ow, Dave says and shakes his hand. That didn't hurt. Karkat, cut that out. I'm driving, Solux says tightly, and you look around to see Karkat is climbing up Solux's hair with his beak and grabby little claws. Karkat, of course, does not stop until he's happily situated between all of Solux's horns. You're the worst, Solux informs Karkat, who squawks back at him. The song finishes up, and the same voice as before comes back on. Saravas hesitates, have a song from the man at the top, or for him anyway. For you, sir. They sound hesitant, surprised at the words they're having to say. Nonetheless, a song starts. This one you know. It's Sabotage. Aw, hell yeah, Beastie Boys, Dave says cheerfully. Hell is right, Solux says. The song was requested by the only person more powerful than Solux. Moreover, Solux seems neither surprised nor alarmed to hear that, which presumably means that he doesn't have an antagonistic relationship with whoever his superior is. Interesting. You start pulling close to June's house, and you can't help but note that her road is unusually busy at the moment, leaving Solux no choice but to parallel park to get a space. When Solux bumps the car behind him, it makes you jump, and when that car alarm goes off, Karkat squawks and flaps about the car until he lands clumsily on your skirt. In fairness, I don't have a license, Solux says with a wince as the alarm blares behind you. He straightens the car up, turns it off, and hops out. The other car is basically fine. Solux just banged the bumper together and set the alarm off. Mr. Egbert steps out of the house, and you see his eyebrows raise in surprise to see you. Sorry, I set the alarm off on whoever's car that is, Solix says, before any of you can say anything. That's one of my coworkers who owns that. We were having a little out-of-work social in the den. I'll just get him, Mr. Egbert says, and nips back inside. A few moments pass, and Mr. Egbert comes back to the door with an equally boring-looking man in white button-up and a black tie. If he was wearing a jacket, he'd look awfully like the men in suits that you've been seeing so much of, but perhaps you're reaching. A suit can just be a suit. The man half jogs, half walks to his car and turns the alarm off, and has a quick check that no damage has been done. Sorry about that, Solix apologizes, not that he sounds massively sorry or sincere. Well, that's some of the surprise gone. Can we come in to see June? We've got a surprise, Dave asks and gestures to Karkat, who is now riding on your shoulder. Oh, well, she's a little under the weather at the moment, Mr. Egbert says, and the other businessman chuckles a little, though that seems an odd thing to laugh at. Hold on, I'm getting water. Excuse me. Can we come in to see her anyway? You ask politely. If she's sick, then Solix trails off, clearly hoping to leave. Dad? A croaky voice comes from upstairs, and Mr. Egbert turns at the sound of it. It's your friends. They've come to visit you. If you're not feeling up to it, Mr. Egbert cuts off, and you can just hear the edge of June's voice from upstairs. But you didn't catch what she said. It must have been inviting you in because Mr. Egbert steps inside and waves you into the house. You and Dave head upstairs with Solix trailing behind you. When you glance back at him, you see that he and Karkat are shooting each other evil looks. Boys. June's room is far from unfamiliar territory for you, but it is surprisingly chilly. All the windows are cracked open, and there's a fan blowing a stiff breeze through the room. June is sat on her bed in blue PJs with bunny rabbits on them. Her under eyes are blue underneath with how pasty and clammy her skin looks, and her hair is a bird's nest. Speaking of birds, Karkat squawks loudly and flaps his wings. Why do you... June pauses and squints at Karkat. Can you guess who it is? Dave asks teasingly. Is that Karkat? Is he like Solix was a snake? June gasps, then looks sharply at Solix, who winces, one hand over his mouth. It is! He was a hummingbird yesterday. I have pictures. Dave laughs. You got Karkat back and didn't tell me? June shouts. She looks at all of you accusingly. And you, of all people, I thought you'd tell me instead of keeping something like that a secret. June accuses Solix, although why him, you don't know. For the record, I thought this was a bad idea, Solix says, taking his hand from his mouth to speak. Interesting, she really didn't already know, so whatever means she had of knowing Karkat's species, it didn't give her knowledge of Karkat's current location and state. Karkat jumps down to June's knee and chirps at her. In the background, some comedy moving runs a laugh track, somewhat discordant to the current vibe of the room. It's pretty unbelievable, though, isn't it? Showing you Karkat's current state is far easier, and we headed down here as soon as we got up this morning. You say diplomatically, smoothing out the situation. We didn't tell anyone else before you either. We were gonna tell you, Dave says quietly, realizing just how far off the mark his little joke had landed. I'll do that now, Solix says quickly and hops onto the windowsill and starts typing on his phone. I'm really glad you're okay, June says softly, and strokes Karkat's back ever so slightly. Karkat chirps and bounces up and down on her knee. His birdie antics pull a smile onto June's face, no matter how annoyed she might be. Don't take this the wrong way, man, but holy shit, what's wrong? Dave asks awkwardly. Just run down, you go off away from your home and do a lot of stuff, and when you stop or burn yourself out enough, you get a little sick. Plus, I gotta be sick. I'd rather complain it's in close proximity to my dad's chicken noodle soup, June answers with a shrug. Dave sits down on June's bed right by her and starts to apologize, but you have other things on your mind. You don't know what you're looking for, but you are looking for something suspicious. Your eyes drift outside to the lawn and June's little balcony with her telescope on it. It's funny. If she pointed it at the moon, she could have been looking right at Karkat without knowing. Hey, June, did you see that big blue light that went up into the sky the other day? You ask her suddenly. Karkat squawks and jumps up and down insistently on the bed, enlightening no one about anything. The ball lightning? Weather balloon, northern lights, whatever? No, I didn't. June shrugs. We should have told you he was back from the moon. I'm sorry, Solix interrupts. Well, I'm glad that he's okay. Even if he is a parrot? I assume that's temporary, June says, and carefully reaches her hand over Karkat. Instead of letting him hop onto her finger, he just picks him up as a whole, her hand wrapping around him and carefully lifting him up. Karkat's tiny face looks as startled as it is possible for a bird to look, and his little bird feet are wrapped around June's fingers. Oh. June holds Karkat up to her face and looks closely at him. You know, maybe this isn't because he got hurt like Solix did. Maybe this is some curse, like a price to pay for escaping, June says slowly. Wait, really? Dave asks and looks at Solux. It makes sense, right? Karkat would be the one to pay some dumb price, yeah? June asks, also looking at Solux. Does Karkat do dumb and self-sacrificial things? Yes. Solux snorts. Maybe it's a classic spell, the kind that true love's kiss could break, June says in wonder and looks at Dave. What? Dave squeaks, his face going red. This is 100% bullshit. You are 100% in. That is pretty classic spell condition for a reason. It appears all throughout history, an animal transformation broken by a gesture of love. Everything from regular animals to a rumored cure for lycanthropy. You agree, ignoring that said cure doesn't work for that. It'd be the kind of shit that Scratch would pull, Solix agrees, oh so very sincerely. Far more sincere than he ever would if he genuinely agreed. See, you should try it, Dave. You could be Karkat's only hope. You have to kiss the bird, June insists and holds Karkat out to Dave. Dave is oh so very red. He hesitates, but you watch as he does indeed lean in and smooch Karkat's little beak to a squeak of alarm. Karkat remains a bird. Of course he does. June carefully sets him down onto the bed sheets. It didn't, Dave says, looking down at a stunned Karkat. June leans in with a smile. Now we're even, June whispers, just loud enough for you to hear. Solix must have heard it too, from how hard he's cracking up. Dave is clearly mortified, and June looks a lot brighter for being able to get up to some mischief. It is what she thrives on, after all. That was incredibly entertaining. I'm going to use your bathroom, lest any of your other pranks make me laugh too hard, you say deadpanned and get up. That would be an inconvenience for me to clean, June nods sincerely. Leaving June's room, you go along the hall to near the top of the staircase where the bathroom is, but as you reach it, you hear several voices from downstairs that make you pause. You weigh up your not desperately pressing need to use the bathroom against the value of potentially snooping and decide to snoop instead. There's several pictures of June on the stairway that you pass as you descend, some that even include young teen versions of you and Dave. There's one near the bottom of the four of you at June's 13th birthday party, she taking you all to a laser quest, and in the picture, Solix is still wearing Dave's sunglasses. He had to, or else he stood out clear as day in the dark room. By the door, there's a rack of keys and a barometer on the wall. You also can't help but notice there's multiple jackets on the coat rack that look to be a few different sizes, along with a good number of hats. How many people did Egbert say that he had over? You sneak along the room towards Mr. Egbert's office, trying to keep light on your feet. The door is shut, but as you get close, you realize that the voices have a more rhythmic nature to them, and you're pretty sure they're not speaking English either. Suddenly, all of June's jokes about her dad actually being the leader of some weird cult don't seem so outlandish after all. He always had a vibe of a religious man that made offhanded comments to holy holidays that June had to be back for, or vague mentions of the church, but he'd always put the rest down to June's imagination. Not so much now. The fear of being caught wells up in you, and you back away from the door and hurry upstairs. You slip into the bathroom, conscious of your excuse for leaving in the first place. Your thought races as you wash your hands. If this is some weird business cult that June's dad is really connected to, then that means the god they're praying to is the one you've seen statues of. What's going on? Wait, those times that June had known things she shouldn't, like Karkat's status of being an angel. Is it possible that her father somehow managed to give her that information? But if that's the case, how would he have done that, and why wouldn't Solix have just said so? What's going on? You can't let anyone know that you're suspicious. Not more than you already have. You can't tell Dave because he'll tell Solix, and Solix clearly is involved. You can't ask June after what you found about her feather. You'll just have to... or about her father, sorry. You certainly can't ask June after what you found out about her father. You'll just have to work with Kanai and maybe Terezi. You would say Jade as well, but Jade is June's roommate. They're closer with each other than she is with you. Her loyalties could be more with June. There's of course Karkat, but as he presently can't communicate in any useful way, he's off the table in the meantime. You just need to act like everything is fine. Play off your earlier worries of just infighting because of your stressed state. Then you can get to the bottom of this. You hope. When you get back, you figure that Dave is about negotiated his way back into June's good graces, judging by the Nick Cage movie that's currently playing. Solix is curled up at the foot of June's bed next to Dave, who is leaning against the wall with Karkat sat on his stomach. You take a seat next to June, moving her pillows out of the way, and discover that the movie in question is National Treasure. You've seen it before, like you have most of this dumb man's movies. You're pretty sure that half the reason that June likes them is how irritating Dave finds them. You settle in, but find yourself pulling your phone out before too long. Did Solix tell you about Karkat? Yes, although I am surprised that you did not immediately declare to everyone that you had found Karkat when he arrived. Well, I had my reasons for that. For one, I wanted to see if June would somehow already know. Are you always this suspicious of your friends? My friends don't usually give me the cause for suspicion. We showed up at her house today, and the same group of men who escorted us from the police station were here, and I heard them chanting something in June's father's office. She joked about her father being a part of some cult, but now I'm pretty sure she wasn't joking. That is suspicious, but it does come after you deciding to not tell anyone about Karkat. Alright, fair, but my suspicions were proven correct. I don't know what's going on here, but it has some connection to that storm god. I know it. Much as I should disapprove of this suspicion, I feel it as well. I think I will continue looking into this god. I really appreciate it. Well, you are welcome. How's Karkat doing? He is currently a bird. He was a hummingbird yesterday, and now he's a small bird that I believe is in the parrot family. He is unreasonably cute. Let me take a picture of him for you. You flip your phone over to your camera setting and lean up around June to take a picture. Dave now has Karkat laying on his back and on Dave's tummy and is gently petting Karkat's chest feathers with his thumb as his little feet hold on to Dave's other fingers. Karkat's eyes are shut in delight and relaxation, and it's the cutest thing you've ever seen. You snap a picture and immediately send it to Kanaya. Oh my. I have been alive for so long, but I cannot recall a single more adorable thing that I have seen than that. I did not even know that birds could rest on their backs like that. I am never deleting this photograph, ever. Good. Do you think that you could perhaps take measurements of Karkat's body, or send me a picture with him next to a common item for scale? I could probably do the to-scale thing, but I have to ask why. I have a desperate need to make a tiny little bird sweater. What a coincidence. I also have a desperate need for you to make a tiny bird sweater for him. I'll take a reference photo or two as soon as I can find the chance and send you my address as well. Fantastic. I await your response eagerly. As you close the window on your phone, you realize that you're not the only one looking at it. June's been peering over your shoulder, and for a moment you're worried about how much she may have seen. I want that picture, she whispers to you. Oh, right. She must have just paid attention after you leant over to take the picture of Karkat and Dave. I'll send it, you whisper back and quickly do just that. So you and her, been talking, huh? June asks with a wiggle of her eyebrows. You make a noise that you hope suggests that it's not a big deal and you don't know where any of that is going anyway, or if it's actually going anywhere. Besides which, you need to talk to Karkat to see if he still heard about Kanaya and her mother's reaction to him before you can agree to even thinking about anything more than platonic with Kanaya. Out of solidarity, of course. Whether all that was communicated or not, you don't know. The five of you breeze through a few Nick Cage movies with June, who looks much brighter and healthier than when you came in. Eventually, you collectively decide to leave because there's only so much more Nick Cage anyone who isn't June can take. You also realize that you could do with some groceries, and now that you have a car at your disposal, you ask Solix to drive you all there. Excuse me. This time, Karkat is riding around on Solix's shoulders. It's not going to rain, right? Dave asks as he peers out at one of the shelves. Who knows, you say flatly. With the weather as magically influenced as it seems to be these days, it could rain fish for all you know. We could grill stuff outdoors, maybe see if Terezi wants to get all fiery on the food, Dave suggests. Maybe, you concede. Excuse me, sir, you can't have a parrot in the store, Omen says behind you. You turn around to see another shopper addressing Solix, who still has Karkat on his shoulder. He's my seeing eye parrot, Solix says without missing a beat. Karkat squawks indignantly and bites Solix's earlobes. He's terrible at his job, Solix adds brightly and walks off with no input from Karkat at all, leaving the baffled woman behind. You and Dave look at each other and both crack up in silent laughter. Alas, you're the one that makes it audible first, and it's only because the woman looked at you as if you had any answers on the parrot matter. Dave fetches things for the cart as you go across the store. Every now and then you run into Karkat and Solix, usually when Solix is taunting Karkat with a cartoon parrot on the box or something or other. You take a moment to consider that perhaps Karkat's bird form could use something a bit more substantial than nectar, and so you pick up plenty of fresh fruits, vegetables, and nuts. You even manage to snap a picture of Karkat sat on your wrist as you hold a Coke can in your hand, at a few different angles too. That's sent off to Kanaya right away, who should be able to extrapolate Karkat's size from that. Dinner ends up being an outdoor grill, just as Dave had wanted. Your mom enjoys the evening, and Solok spends a good amount of time putting out fires that Terezi starts. Karkat makes himself a little nest in Dave's hair, and only gets out at the tempting offer of cucumber slices. It's a nice night, and you go back to bed, prepared to sleep well now that you know Karkat is fine and nestled in Dave's hoodie on his desk. You sleep, and unfortunately, dream. The whole dream has a quality to it that feels like you're underwater, a walk without meaning to, almost as if you're running on a track. The music in the air has the discordant sound of many tinny tunes playing at once, and as you walk through the crowd, it reminds you of circus music. The lights around you are bright and blinding as you pass by various stalls. You don't see the details of any of them until you come to a stop before one in particular. It reminds you of a Build-A-Bear workshop that you've seen in the closest mall to you. The sign above the stall reads Build-A-Boy, an obvious play on the familiar shop. Inside there are two men working over a bench, on which rests a large, noodle-limbed doll. The walls of the stall are lined with glittering thread in all colors, toys, stuffing, and jars with all sorts of things in them. There's another doll splayed out over the counter, but your eyes are stuck on one on the bench. You stare as the faceless men slide a large black shard. Excuse me, hold on, let me do that again. You stare as the faceless men slide a large shard of black glass into the head of the doll, and then click it closed. Its face is hard plastic, with its mouth stuck in frozen rictus of amusement. It puts you in the mind of a ventriloquist doll. Next, the men move to the soft body of the large doll and lift its shirt up. The chest of the doll is open already, with fluffy white stuffing poking out. Grab that, one of the men instructs the other. You stand and watch the second man walk to the counter. As he goes to reach for a jar, he brushes the doll on the counter and the thing slides off onto your side. "Oh, sorry, miss. Could you pass me that? It's a return. Bad children don't get to keep their toys," the man says. Mechanically, you bend down and grab the doll. It's large, as big as you are, and as you touch it, you find it's entirely fabric and incredibly soft, not like the stiff plastic of the other doll. As you look at the gray fabric of the doll, you see that it's worn, not in the sense that it's damaged or defective, but more like how a toy looks when a child has carried it everywhere for years and years, or has carried it everywhere. There's a little tear here and there on the doll that has been carefully mended, and a smile on its face is warm. It has 4 shiny buttons for eyes in red and blue. You pick the doll up and gently put it on the counter, only then realizing that it has a huge rip on its side where white stuffing is spilling out alarmingly. You look at the man, intending to ask what happened to the doll and if it'll be fixed, only as you look up at the man, pulling something horrible from the glass jar, something meaty, he turns to you, a dripping blue heart in his hand that twitches as it still beats. You scream. You scream so loud, in fact, that you wake up yourself, flailing around with your limbs tangled in your blankets. You're shaking all over, your skin cold with sweat, and your adrenaline is so high that when Solux opens your door, you nearly jump out of your skin. "Rose, what's wrong?" he asks, peering around the door. "Nothing, just..." You force down a wave of panic. "Just a nightmare." Solux slips into your room, closing the door behind him and silently crossing the floor on bare feet. He perches on the edge of the bed and looks at you with concern, his smaller set of eyes just squinting open at you. The vision of the button eyes floats into your mind again, and you shudder. "Not a premonition or anything?" he asks. "No, I'm pretty sure it was just a nightmare. All the usual marks of one. Gore that doesn't really make sense, a setting that doesn't look like anything. Just my brain scaring itself, I think." You admit and give him a little shaky smile. "Things have been stressful lately. It makes sense that your mind is trying to react to it or something." Solix nods understandingly. "Yes, I'm probably just processing it." You agree. "Want me to stick around? I'm pretty sure Karkat was going to come in and see if you were okay, but he can't talk yet, and also, he doesn't have thumbs to open doors. Loser." Solix laughs meanly. You roll your eyes at their childish game of spite. "I know you're waking up at night, but I feel bad for waking Karkat up. He was sleeping, wasn't he?" you ask, and Solix nods. "Maybe he's just attuned to you specifically," Solix says slyly. And why would that be? You ask him, not in the mood to play games. Solix smiles at you as if you're both in on some secret, and he leans a little closer to you. You know, because of your diamond, he says surreptitiously. Your tired brain hangs on that nonsensical sentence for a moment or two. It's maybe a good 30 seconds before you remember that diamond is a word you've heard Solix use to refer to Dave before. It's a symbol of their relationship, like the spade is for Solix's one with Karkat, and heart is for everyone else in regular relationships. More allegiance, you ask, and Solix nods. He thinks you're dating Karkat. Solix, I'm gay. You know this. You tell him with a groan. Yeah, for your concupiscent quadrants, obviously. Everyone knows how gay you are. In 1,000 years, people will go, Sappho who? And instead, you'll be the reference. Solix says and flashes you a grin. And yet you're saying I'm romantically involved with Karkat, who is a male. You say as plainly as possible. More allegiance is a conciliatory relationship. It's not concupiscent. It's different. Solix sighs. Do you know how language works, Solix? Language works because we both agree that a sound or symbol carries an agreed upon meaning. If you just start throwing other things in randomly, you're not communicating with language, you're making noise and nothing more. I'm a lesbian, attracted exclusively to women. Though gender is a nebulous thing and not everyone fits into a binary, and so on, I feel very confident in saying that I have no romantic nor sexual attraction to men, a group that Karkat and I both put him in. More allegiance is a romantic relationship. You've made it plain all these years I've known you, therefore I do not see how it's an exception to this rule. You tell him sharply. Solix gestures vaguely with his hand and then sighs. Look, this works better in demonic. English isn't really built for this, so when I say romance and relationship, it all ends up the same word. Demons don't really have orientations in the same way. Gender and anatomy are both more complex and way simpler for us. You just are what you are, and what you want to be. You like who you like. It's just, Solix makes a frustrated noise and shakes his head. But you put things in English and it gets weird. I mean, my body is how it's supposed to be, and yeah, I can shapeshift if I want, but my default is technically closer to female by human anatomy standard, which is dumb because I'm not. Solix groans. No, I get it. Demon anatomy doesn't even fully correlate with humans, and with 4 quadrants and genders being as numerous as they are, I can see why applying English language to human orientations to demon concepts is perhaps rather unhelpful. You agree? Right, because it's not entirely wrong. But it's not entirely wrong. There are still people you're not going to be attracted to because they're a part of a certain group or whatever. For us, it changes with quadrants too. Maybe you wouldn't date someone pale because you're not attracted to that, but go flush instead and you are. Having different attractions for conciliatory and concupiscent is entirely normal for us. Solix goes on to explain. Because of it being sexual or not, you ask. You can be red or black with someone emotionally without ever fucking them. It's not entirely like that, Solix says with a frown. This does sound complex. I'm not a demon though, you point out. No, really? Solix gasps over dramatically and clutches a hand to his chest as if he might have a heart attack and die from shock. Naturally, you pick up your pillow from behind you and smack him in the face with it, knocking Solix flat on your bed. You take your pillow back and stare at him for the sass, but he just stands on his back looking up at the ceiling. Look, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am, Solix says softly. You're really protective of him, and I know you are with all your friends, but him especially. When something happens to Karkat, like it keeps doing, it's not just that you're really motivated to get him back or whatever, but you're personally motivated to get revenge on whoever did it, he says. Like you weren't with Aridin, you retort. I didn't really care if he lived or died beyond the practical consideration of him ratting us out to anyone. I cared more about getting Karkat back from wherever he had been taken to. You cared about getting him back and making Aridin pay for it. You were outraged that he considered himself Karkat's Moirail, Solix points out. You thought that was ridiculous too, you agree. Because it was. It was funny how wrong he was. You were livid, Solix counters. Oh, come on. He claimed to be his Moirail, and he was nowhere to be found this whole time. Karkat was alone, and that guy never showed up. He maimed a human and acted like it was nothing, and seemed surprised that Karkat was horrified by that. He clearly didn't know who Karkat really was like at all. You snap. Not like you, Solix says. Right, I mean... You hesitate. Solix grins. I'm not saying anything about it. It's just that you two clearly like each other. Maybe I'm seeing this as a demon, but it looks like to me like you two give each other advice more than friends would. You trust each other, you get angry at the thought that someone could claim to be close to him. Again, it could be me seeing diamonds because I'm a demon, but... Solix pauses, grimaces a little and goes on. But I'm not wrong. Come on, Rose. I'm basically a genius and I know diamonds when I see them. So modest, you say dryly. False modesty is dumb as shit. I'm great, and you're the best seer there ever was. Do you pretend to not be all that? No, it's bullshit, Solix retorts. You want to point out that you're hardly a seer anymore, but that's changed as of late, hasn't it? Solix looks away from you and sits in silence for a moment. When he speaks next, his voice is a little softer. You don't have to stop calling yourself whatever you like. It doesn't have to be a huge deal or whatever, or something you freak out over. Like you said, English doesn't always play nice with quadrant stuff. Just don't insist I'm wrong because of it or whatever. It's not part of human culture, and Karkat might not remember anything about how it's supposed to go, but it's still something he's hardwired for as an angel, so just think about it, he says. You're not really sure what to say to that. The first thing that comes to you is to deny that you and Karkat are anything more than friends. Your whole joke about him being your hypothetical husband is just a dumb joke. Besides of which, you're not into men, so it's not possible. But it's not often that Solix brings something up like this. You trust him and you're close, but you don't have deep emotional talks about much beyond your mother. It's gotta be something exceptional for him to say something like this at all. I didn't even come in here to say any of this. I only came to check on you to make sure you weren't being murdered or anything. Solix mutters. I appreciate it, you tell him, and let him draw his own conclusions about what, specifically, you appreciate. He looks at you for a moment and then nods. He stands up and leaves, closing your door gently. You settle back down into bed, and if you dream after that, it's nothing you remember at all. You remember when you wake. Okay, we'll drink. Oh, okay, we're about halfway through. All right. In the morning, Karkat joins you for breakfast, a good 5 minutes before Dave and Solix come down. Presumably, Karkat excused himself from your brother getting dressed. In the time that he's alone with you, he sits on the kitchen counter as you cut up fruit for him and put some nuts in a bowl. It all seems very domestic in a way that leaves you a little paranoid when Solix shows up, but your demon friend doesn't comment. Did you think about it anymore? Dave asks, and you're completely at a loss for what he means until Karkat chirps and you realize Dave was speaking to him. You're okay with it? Dave asks. Karkat lowers the walnut he had held with his foot so that his foot is on the ground again, and he nods his whole head and upper body. What are you two doing? You ask curiously, and pick up the small dish of fruit and nuts as you bring them to the table. Karkat transfers his bit of walnut to his beak and flutters over the distance so he's with the rest of you. I wanted to take pictures of his wings and feathers and that, maybe try sketching them. I figured that maybe paying close attention to him and giving him time for him to, would be enough of a Karkat thing to feed him, Dave answers. Dedication, working for others, and yeah, that's about right. Solix nods and then yawns. What are you doing today, Rose? Dave asks. Oh, I see how it is. Don't ask my plans for the day. Solix gasps in mock offense. I know your plans for the day. Have a secret conversation with other demons about important things, then have a long nap in his choice sunbeam. Dave says flatly, and then telekinetically pulls a box of Pop-Tarts over to himself, making Karkat shriek in birdie alarm. Did he forget that Dave can actually do that? I've actually upgraded. Now I have stressful conversations with other demons about things going wrong in choice sunbeams, Solix says, and sticks his tongue out. Well, now I know. Rose? Dave says with an amused shake of his head. Oh, research, you say vaguely. Not actual homework, Dave says. Oh, I guess gasp. Not gasp, actual homework, Dave says, actually saying the word gasp instead of just doing it. That provides a perfect cover for the illicit research you intend to do. Good cover story, Dave. If I must, you say, after a long suffering sigh. Perhaps between all of your research, you could squeeze in some homework. Well, maybe. You watch as Dave finishes up his Pop-Tarts and then holds his finger out to Karkat, who carefully steps onto it and then carries him off. You hear that? Solix asks with a yawn. Sunbeam calling you, you guess. Good to know I'm not just hearing things, he says with a nod and wanders off. You have a few moments on your own before your phone pings. It's Kanaya. Hello, Rose. I just wanted to let you know that I'm back now, and I have put Karkat's sweater in the mail for you. It should be there today. Oh wow, that was fast. The benefits of not having to sleep, I suppose. Our mail doesn't arrive until after midday, but as soon as it's here, I shall pick it up and get it to Carcat. And furnish me with pictures of the result, of course. But of course. Despite your insistence on homework as a cover, it probably wouldn't be a terrible idea to actually work on your projects for school, especially the ones requiring a long-term spell in Basilisk. You really ought to have done that one before now. Armed with your coffee, you meander back to your room, pausing only at one of the shelves lined with knickknacks and various decorative items that your mother has acquired from who knows where. A snow globe stands out to you with a ballerina inexplicably dancing in the snow. On impulse, you pick it up and head to your room. Setting both items on your desk, you think for a moment and then cross the hall to Dave's room. Once inside, you find Dave sat in his desk with Carcat perched atop his monitor with one wing spread out. Sorry to intrude on your avian affections. Do you have any more of that board that you set your basilisk spell on? You ask, gesturing to the ticking pendulum, which is set up above the board so that he can easily transport it when preserving the spell. Yeah, so look, cut it in half for me. He ran his spell in a sphere of glass because I guess he can. I think I kicked it under the bed, Dave says, and scoots his desk chair over to his bed, leaving his camera on the desk. You sidle up to Dave's desk as he rummages under the bed and take a chance to pet the tiny feathers on top of Carcat's head. Got it, here you go, Dave says and shuffles back to you, dragging his chair with him across the floor rather than getting up and moving it. He hands the square of sawed-off plain wood to you and picks up his camera once more. Thank you. Enjoy your photography, you tell Dave with a wink, just because it'll fluster him, and that will forever be funny to you. Returning to your room, you set the snow globe down on the board and draw a circle a little way out from it. It ought to be a good enough test to have your spell stir up the liquid in the snow globe, making the fake snow inside shift as proof. You sit down and start writing out how you think the spell should go, focusing more on the language of what you want to do before you fuss around with the actual part of your homework that's asking you to use multiple sustained sources. You want to agitate the liquid, but you're not silly enough to insist that it move only water because it's not likely it's just water in there. Even if it is, it's not going to be pure water. Simply stating that it's liquid you want to move, making no mention as to solids ought to suffice. According to what you've read, it's usually fine until you get into things like non-Newtonian fluids. Make sure to define the area of the spell to the dimensions of what you want. No need to go string up clouds or... well, that's a thought. You quickly finish off the spell, powering it on sunlight and the perpetual darkness of the ocean. The regular pattern of the night and the day will suffice to show your ability to tether a fluctuating power source and use multiple tethers. Homework done. You activate the spell and watch the snow inside gently shift and swirl inside the snow globe. That's not what you're interested in, though. You take your eraser and take out the section for the tethers. With that clear, you grab your phone and look at the picture Kanaya sent you, the one on the statues of that god. With care, you copy the symbol down into the space where your tethers were, making sure to be as accurate as you can. This is the symbol of a god. It has meaning. You touch your fingers once more to the edge of the circle, hold inside your mind the idea of storms, of changing weather, rain, and hail. You cling to the knowledge of unexplained storms, and you believe. The spell catches. You open your eyes to see the subtle shifting of the water in the snow globe, twisting the fake snow into whirls and eddies of white. Your jaw hangs open in shock. This is holy magic which is powered by a god that shouldn't exist anymore. All of the gods are gone. They're not powering anything. Everything powered by a god broke after the event, but this god, this one works. Desperately, you scramble for your phone and start to record a video of this. This is unbelievable. This is a god still powering magic, and he's still around. You stop the recording, erase the wavy sign of the storm god, and write Cthulhu's name instead. You try to cast the spell again with all your faith in your dark patron, but as has been the case before, since the event, it's useless. Kanaya, I have big news. I'm so shocked that I hardly know what to say. What is wrong? Or is something wrong? Is this good news? I honestly don't know if it's good or bad. Sorry, I'll just start at the beginning. I was doing my work for my Basilisk class, running long-term spells on multiple sources. Yes, I remember learning that, but I must say that I'm not the biggest fan of that language. Not the point. I made a spell to agitate a snow globe I owned, and it worked. Congratulations, I suppose, but is that so shocking? No, not by itself. I am merely establishing that the spell worked. I then erased the tether that I had used and put the symbol on that we took from the statues of that god, and focused my mind on the storms we've seen lately, all the unexplained ones. But holy magic no longer works. Yes, that is what I thought, but look at this. Look at the symbol at the circle. What? I know. Afterwards, I erased and I tried the same one with Cthulhu instead, and it didn't work at all. The gods aren't suddenly back, but I think this one has been here the whole time. I don't know what to say about that. It's incredible, of course, but I would hardly describe myself as pro-god, so I wouldn't say that I'm celebrating here. But if you are right, and there is a god wandering around, then surely people need to know. I think people do, or at least those people in suits did. One of them had the symbol on a lapel pin, remember? They're clearly an organization. More than that, I saw similar people worshipping and chanting together at June's house. You think June is involved in this? I don't know. There's so much not adding up here, and I don't know what's going on. But I'm suspicious as all hell about it and on the case. I don't think that I want to tell people about this god. That would be showing my hand, wouldn't it? Better to know all that we can about him before we make any kind of move. That is fair. Gods can be capricious, fickle, and cruel. Not to intrude, but do you want to talk about this? It seems like there's something to these statements. It would be intruding, and I do not wish to talk about it. Not to be impolite, but firm, I suppose. Oh well, of course, you have every right to set boundaries, and this sounds like a personal issue. But should you change your mind, I am willing to listen. I appreciate the gesture. Unfortunately, I must go now, as my mother wants my attention, and I'm trying to convince her to stick around long enough to apologize to Karkat when he comes back to town. Partially because it is a polite thing to do, and also because I do not think that she could hold a conversation of any real length with Karkat and continue to think that he is a threat to me. That's understandable. I would say that she should just call and talk to him, but Karkat is tragically a small parrot at the moment, and it would classify that as being somewhat of a communication barrier. Quite. Do send me pictures when you get that sweater. Of course. Speak to you later then. Until then. You look back at your snow globe experiment and narrow your eyes. Just to make sure you're not going crazy, you erase Cthulhu's details and set up that storm god symbol once again. Once more, you focus on storms and weather. The spell activates again. You stand and lean over the snow globe, watching the flakes dance and sigh. I'm onto you, you whisper to the snow globe, which does nothing more than silently swirl, because it is a snow globe. I know you're still around, weather god. You know that? Gods are just men, and the more powerful they are, the farther they have to fall, and I'm going to... You falter. Below you, the water in the snow globe is swirling and churning faster and faster. When you see the water in it start to bubble, you back the hell up as quickly as you can. You get 4 steps back before the glass part of the snow globe violently pops off from the base, sending streaming water down your desk onto your floor. Your breath catches in your chest and you stare at the destroyed snow globe. That can be good. Perhaps you should not taunt the god. Your sense of unease from the snow globe incident does not leave you, even as you find a new one and set the experiment up just as it should be for your class and leave it alone. You decide to track down Terezi. As far as you're aware, she has no particular allegiance to June, though you would be hard-pressed to describe her answers to your questions regarding the statue as helpful. She's certainly not antagonistic to you. You search for Terezi, leads you outside where she sat on a deck chair near last night's grill and coal-filled fire pit. She's holding a lump of charcoal in her hand and eating it like an apple. You have no idea if that's normal for dragons or not, but you suspect that Terezi doesn't abide by anyone's conception of normal, even if they are the same species as her. Hello, Terezi. I have some questions, you say as you approach her, and take a seat on the other deck chair so you're facing her. That's good. Question things. The dragon nods sagely and keeps chewing. Oh. I assume you remember the statues and the other paraphernalia in Solix's void of that god. You said you knew who he was, you say. Not a question, Terezi points out. Fine. Who is he? You ask. Terezi shrugs one shoulder and chews a little more. When she talks, her tongue is black. Who someone actually is a pretty big question. The kind only that person could tell you. I'm not really interested in that. It's a boring question to me. She answers you and takes another bite. It's not boring to me, you reason. So, or ask better questions, Terezi says with her mouth full. You grit your teeth. She's not being very helpful, but perhaps you can be smart about this. I have reason to believe that those statues and such represented a god with a wavy kind of symbol. I just tested a spell, and that spell worked, powered by a god. That shouldn't be possible with the gods locked away in the moon, and I tested with Cthulhu, and it didn't work, so I can only conclude that this god is roaming free. I want to know who he is, so I can find out why he's outside and the others are locked away. You explain. That's not a question, and you're still boring. Ask a good question, the dragon groans. Fine. Did this god lock the others away, and if so, why? You snap at her. Terezi rolls her head and tosses the chunk of charcoal in her mouth in one. She snaps it with her sharp teeth and swallows. You light-bound people, you just grab for knowledge like greedy little kids. Whether this deity did or didn't do this is irrelevant. The answer won't change anything for you. You just want to know because it sounds like the kind of thing you should know or would be good to know. As for why it was done, if it was done, the answer would just be that how things are now is preferable to how they were before or were going to be. The same reason anyone does anything. Bad questions, Terezi tuts. You pause, immediately annoyed, but then her words sink in. Things are different now to then, you say slowly. Terezi tilts her head to look at you, but remains silent. People don't remember some things. The other gods are gone. Magic is different because of that. Seers don't work anymore, you say slowly. If you list out the things that are different, you can probably start to put together a motive. Don't they? Terezi asks. Well, human ones have all had their sight gifted by a god. That's where you get visions. I don't know if it's different for dragons, but with no gods, no one's been having visions. You clarify. Terezi looks at you. Or, I have. Karkat has, but he's probably different with being an angel, and I've seen through Cthulhu's senses, so that's still the same, you say. How do you know you're seeing through him? What's that like? Terezi asks. You struggle to put into words the way it feels when your patron gifts you knowledge. It's hard to describe. The slithering, consuming madness, cold like the deep ocean and the gaps between stars, everything shifting in nebulous and terrifying form. Visions from him feel distinct. So they all feel that way? Terezi asks. Well, they did. I've had a few lately that didn't. A dream I shared with Karkat about the moon. I think that was a memory and a prediction in one. I could see through his eyes on the moon as well. Was he gifting me a vision? You ask as the idea steals over you. Better question. I'm sure some angels can do that, but not his kind. He can likely show you what he sees if you have a bond like blood with him, such as your dream, but not gifting visions like your tentacled tutor used to, Terezi answers. So she will answer your questions, if they're ones she likes. You lean back in your chair a little and let the thoughts swirl around in your head like a sommelier sampling of wine. Where am I getting the visions from? You ask. Better question. Exclude the dream with the angel. Thinking about it before asking me something. Don't make it boring, Terezi warns you. I had my first vision of Karkat at home. It was daytime. I was tired from being awake all night. There was that mobile that my mother made. The one that was a focus, filled with moonshine and a symbolic moon to guide my vision, but I suspect that didn't magically gift me sight. Mother said the conditions weren't right for it before, so I'm going to assume it was more of a signpost than a catalyst. You say thoughtfully. I was asleep in the sunshine. I slept in the sunshine a lot. I wonder if the focus was powered by the sun. The vision seemed tied to them, and Solix alluded to my magic being light-oriented before by demon standards, and your insult earlier indicated the same. You go on. You hesitate. You could ask if the focus had more to do with your visions than you thought, but that feels like the wrong question. What deeper questions can you ask on this subject? She said Karkat wasn't giving you the visions. It wasn't Cthulhu, so what is it then? Was the time of day relevant, or rather being in the sunlight? You ask. At this stage, yes, though perhaps by now not exclusively required. Terezi nods. An interesting answer. It implies that at a later point it won't be relevant. So you needed to be asleep to see at the right time of day. Well, what was it in the drink that my mom gave me? You ask warily. Coke and several 5-hour energy drinks, enough to disturb your sleep. Terezi grins sharply. No wonder you were so antsy you couldn't manage to drift off that night. No wonder that drink tasted so terrible. The goal was to make me sleep at a specific time rather than the night. So whatever is causing this is something she knows about, you say. It's not a question, it's only a logical explanation for the situation. Terezi looks away from you and picks up another lump of coal and turns it around in her hand a little. She knows things, just doesn't know why she knows them, or always understands them, or she's fractured now. If you ask her, she might not know, and even if she did, she might not tell you anyway. Terezi answers quietly and then bites into the charcoal. You knew this already, of course. She must be very different from how she was when you knew her before all of this, you say. Not really. She's still Roxy, still smart and cunning. A mirror is still a mirror, even when it gets a little shattered in the frame. Terezi answers with a shrug. That's nice. It's nice to know that your mom can have a friend who still sees her as a person. I do wonder sometimes if the reason she is the way she is now is part because of me and Dave. There was some accident, and then there was us. Pregnancy is hardly easy on a body anyway, and people without mom's magical power end up with psychological fallout sometimes. Postpartum depression or psychosis, things like that. I wonder if it was us, you admit. It's not something you like to think about, but it is a thought that comes to you at night when you can't sleep. A little worry that you did this, that you ruined the greatest magical mind of a generation. That was no accident, Terezi says bluntly. What? You whisper as shock floods your system like ice. But it wasn't anything you and Dave did either. Tell Roxy I'll see her around, Terezi says and stands up. She strides away from the deck chairs, and with a ripple her form shifts until she's a huge dragon again. Wait, I still have questions, you shout, rushing after her. Terezi's giant head swings around towards you and her nostrils flare up. Go on then. You hesitate. Make it a good question. This deity that we were talking about, the ones the statues were for, is that the only god that avoided being locked away? You ask. The dragon's mouth splits into a smile with sharp teeth the length of your forearm. Good question. No, not the only one. With that, she takes off to the sky with a huge almighty beat of her wings and flies off, no doubt to terrify a whole lot of people between here and wherever she's going. There's more than one god out there. You need to find out who they are and why they escaped. It's almost a laughable contrast. On one side, you're discovering that there are still gods around, but on the other, you have to go to the mail and pick up a tiny bird sweater. Your life is very strange. It's quite a walk to your mailbox, but you honestly welcome the chance to clear your head. You feel like you have too many ideas rattling around, and they've not yet settled into their proper place, as if this whole thing is a jigsaw and you're earning the pieces back bit by bit. Kanaya's package is in the post box, just as you thought it would be. It feels somewhat bad for the days when the mail had to be sent between sorting offices by truck instead of teleporting. Of course, it's still delivered by smaller trucks out to the individual mailboxes across town, but it doesn't have to travel so far by vehicle. Just thinking of all the traffic that might cause otherwise is enough to make you shudder. Carefully cutting through the tape on the package, you open it up and walk back to your house. Inside the box is dark green tissue paper, expertly folded and neatly arranged. You have to crouch and balance the box on your knees so that you can unwrap the prize inside. The teeny tiny bird sweater, of course, is sleeveless, with what Karkat's lack of arms. It fixes around the back with Velcro, and you're utterly delighted to find that it has a hoodie pocket, as well as a large hood. You hurry back to the house and upstairs to Dave's room. When you get there, you find Dave gleefully photographing Karkat hanging from the string that moves his blinds. You're not sure if he's there deliberately or not, but when he sees you, he chirps happily and flaps his wings, so he swings about merrily. Kanaya sent me something for Karkat, you say, and toss the outer packaging with your address on Dave's little waste paper basket. Ah, I see. Rose and Kanaya sitting in a tree. SCHEMING, Dave says without looking up from his camera. You open the little box again and pull out the tiny bird hoodie. You hold it up so Dave can see it, and you know the very moment that he's laid eyes on it, and from his delighted gasp, Karkat sees it and squawks, letting go of the cord for the blinds and flying off onto Dave's record collection, or at least the amount of his collection that he left behind when he moved to Salem. Karkat, we need to put you in this tiny hoodie as soon as humanly possible, Dave insists, and takes it from your hand and hurries over to him. Karkat flares his wings and hisses at Dave, which isn't something you knew he could do. Are you sure you don't want to wear it, Karkat? Aren't you aware of how very naked you are right now? Are you a tiny nudist, Karkat? You ask teasingly, and he shrieks at you in a way that makes you glad he doesn't have his usual volume. No, wait, listen, Dave says, and kneels down by his record collection and whispers to Karkat for a minute. Kanaya's gonna want you to send her pictures of this, right? Dave asks, looking up from Karkat. She did make me promise to send her the results of her work on a lovely avian model here. Yes, you agree. Dave grins and goes back to whispering to Karkat, who waddles closer to Dave with obvious reluctance. Dave carefully puts the hoodie on Karkat, slipping the neck opening over him, and when Karkat spreads his wings, he fastens it neatly around his back with the Velcro. Then at the very end, he carefully pulls the large hood over Karkat's head. It is the most adorable thing you've seen, and you immediately take pictures for Kanaya, and of course for yourself. Karkat shakes his head and manages to flick the hoodie back down. He takes an experimental fly around the room, just a lap or two, but it seems that Kanaya's design doesn't restrict him at all. You should probably go show this to Kanaya, Dave suggests, and you happily go to your room to do so. Surprisingly, Karkat sits on your shoulder and goes with you. You sit down and open up your laptop. It's easiest to just open the conversation on your phone by sending her several of Karkat's pictures. Karkat makes low birdie grumbles, which isn't a noise you knew that a bird could make, but it very much fits Karkat's present attitude. You close the message on your phone and turn to the laptop, waiting for Kanaya to respond, which she does so almost instantly. That is delightful. Does it fit well? Yes, he can fly in it and everything. I'm very impressed with your construction of it. Have you made one before? No, I haven't, but I found patterns online, and I am very familiar with sewing. Well, consider me even more impressed. It is very adorable, and Karkat must like it as well, as he hasn't undone it yet or demanded to be let free. He's right here with me. He's not trying to destroy it or anything like that. Oh, is he there with you now? Right on my shoulder. Can he read as a little bird? I know that honestly sounds like a strange question, but I have no idea how this works. Honestly, neither do I. I think he can, though. I'll ask him. You look at Karkat perched on your shoulder. It takes a moment to repress your reaction at how adorable a tiny bird is in a hoodie and move on to your question. Can you read? You ask him. Karkat bobs his head up and down in a clear yes. You consider this answer. Do you want me to tell her that you can read? You ask and get an affirmative answer. He indeed can read. I can only assume that his bird form doesn't limit him in that way, which is good to know. We'd assumed as much, but still the reassurance is nice. That is good. I feel a loss of where to start. Is Karkat aware that I came looking for him? I did mention it as my explanation for why you were involved, yes. Karkat, I'm very sorry for how my mother reacted to you, and for not reaching out to you after that sooner. We don't have a pleasant experience with your kind, and we assume that you having not told me meant that you were trying to deceive me to harm me. On your shoulder, Karkat squawks and hops up and down. I would say that he seems upset by that prospect. Karkat never had anything bad to say about you, and he's quite a sensitive person. I doubt he'd deliberately have deceived you for nefarious purposes. And if he didn't tell you what species he was, it was likely for your own protection or worry that something would go wrong. Wish it did. I am sorry about that. Key smash. What? Sorry, Karkat attempted to bite my ear. I assume for calling him sensitive. Is he sensitive about that issue? He is now squawking angrily, so I assume so. I am very sad that I cannot see this in person. Oh dear, I feel like I have just made excuses for what me and my mother did rather than really say sorry. Karkat lets out a soft whistle and flutters down from your shoulder to the top of your screen. He turns around so he's facing it and tries to peck at Kanaya's screen text. Look, how about we make this easier? We can do the yes or no thing from before. Yes here, no here. You suggest and tap on the edges of the screen. Are you upset with Kanaya? You ask, and Karkat immediately hops over to the no side. I'm doing a yes or no thing with Karkat since he can't speak for himself in any way I can transcribe. I don't speak albino Kanur. Besides, I doubt cheap squawk would be especially meaningful for you. Emotionally it would be, but in terms of understanding, the actual context of what he's saying is less so. Quite. I just asked if he is upset with you, and he said no. Do you have any other yes-no formatted questions I can pass on to him? Oh, I see. I suppose you could ask him if he is upset with my mother as well. He says no. Does he still want to work with me? He hurried over to the yes section of my laptop screen so fast he nearly fell off, so yes. Oh dear, I hope he's okay. His pride is just dented. Sorry, I meant to delete that and did not get all of it. No, what question were you going to ask? I was going to ask if he was afraid that me or my mother would hurt him. Karkat hesitates, but he shifts into the no section of your screen. He supposed that, giving him a binary option, you eradicated any chance for him to convey that he was a little frightened, which, to be honest, given that you saw Kanaya threaten to cut an angel in half with an unholy chainsaw, you think at least a little fear is sensible. Still, he doesn't want Kanaya to feel bad, and you're not here to editorialize his answers. The thought occurs to you almost intrusively, and it's hard to shake, like a splinter under your skin. If you were a demon or an angel, would this be pale? Helping your friend in a weakened state to communicate with someone he cares about? You're not thinking about it. You are the president of the club of not thinking about it. He says no. I did witness you threaten to chainsaw an angel, though, so perhaps he is just very trusting that you mean no harm to him in particular. How would that have worked, by the way? Oh, it is quite silly. Do go on. Well, I assume you are familiar with the concept of holy water in the Catholic faith, although many other religions have blessed or anointed waters and oils, etc. Yes, typically made holy by practicing of some ritual, usually by some granted that power by divine mandate by proxy from their organization. Although no one can make any anymore, I would have assumed that the same would be true of the unholy equivalents. Yes and no. I am unsure if Satanists have the structure in their organization that means that you have to pass certain tests to do it, but even if they did, you are correct in saying that they could not now. However, living entities of a certain faith are usually imbued with enough holy or unholy energy to perform such miracles, be they holy or unholy, such as demons. In this case, yes, it also helps that the regions for this particular oil are laughably easy to find. Well, you can't say that and not tell me. I'll die from curiosity. It killed the cat, Kanaya. Who knows what it may do to me? I shall spare you such fate and just tell you. It is merely citrus oil, a specific kind, but not that hard to find at all. Then you just require a demon to curse it for you. I made a bet with the demon at night many years ago that I could sit outside as the sun rose and not run for 10 straight minutes. If I survived, he would give me a lifetime supply of unholy oil. Of course, if I were a regular vampire, I would be dead by then, but regardless, I won and got my oil cursed. Ingenious. Was the demon in question annoyed by this? Oh no, he seemed to find it quite funny, actually, and he made it so the jar of the stuff that I have refills each time I close it instead of overflowing and drowning me or something sinister. That's really cool. So you just grease your chainsaw with it and it'll kill an angel. That is the theory, although I admit I have not had the chance to test it yet. But based on what I know, I feel confident that it would, or at the very least, destroy their body, buying me time to get away. A blur of wings startles you out of your conversation with Kanaya, and you look to see Karkat flying away and out of your room. You suppose the conversation had drifted away from the topic of talking to her on Karkat's behalf. Really, the business of your conversation has passed, and you could go, but you feel like you'd happily listen to Kanaya talk about wall paint. Your crush might be a little embarrassing at this stage. Regardless, you end up talking to Kanaya for a while. The next day, as you camp on the sofa researching minor gods on your laptop, or at least you are until Dave comes with Karkat sat on the top of his head, as if Dave was his royal palanquin. Rose, where'd you put my board? Dave asks. You vaguely gesture to the high ceiling of the entryway, where unreal air has since drifted. Dave looks up at it, tipping Karkat off his head with an offended squawk. Sorry, Karkat. How am I meant to get that down, Rose? Dave asks you accusingly. You have a magic, flying moirail, you point out. He's sleeping in the library. I don't want to... Oh, okay. Dave looks as Karkat takes off in the direction of the library. It is amazing how Karkat still feels the urge to annoy Solux even as a bird, and moreover, how he can do it without the power of speech, you remark. Maybe if I throw something at it? Dave wonders. Don't throw anything you're not willing to see glitch through the building and possibly get stuck there, you warn him. So, anything of yours, then, Dave retorts. Your witty comeback is cut short by loud bird shrieks from the direction of the library. Not unusual, but the loud smash that follows it is, as is the way the bird noises immediately stop and Solix starts shouting. Oh shit, Karkat! Solix shouts. His voice must be loud for you to hear it from here. As both you and Dave take off running. Dave is a little ahead of you because he didn't get his laptop off his lap to get off the sofa. I'm sorry. Solix shouts desperately. You and Dave hurry to the door to see a smashed over bookcase that Solix is desperately pawing through. What happened? Dave asks a little breathlessly. It was quite the sprint. He woke me up. I was dreaming and I just lashed out, and Solix gestures helplessly at the bookcase. Did you hit Karkat through a bookcase? You demand, rushing over there and trying to find any sign of him. I didn't mean to. I didn't know it was him. I was just having a nightmare, and I wouldn't hurt him deliberately, not like... Solix stumbles over his words, pulling books out and tossing them behind him. There, Dave exclaims. He jumps over to the other side of the shattered bookshelf and lifts the book. There's a quiet caw, and Dave picks up... Whoa. Not the small Canura-sized creature he was a moment before, but now a pure white parrot that's easily the biggest you've ever seen. He looks as bewildered as the rest of you and fluffs his feathers up and shakes himself off. Oh, thank fuck. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I really didn't, Solix says hurriedly, scrambling closer to Karkat and Dave. Are you okay? You ask him, and after a second, Karkat nods his head. Karkat jumps from Dave's arm to land on Solix's shoulder. He's big enough now that he really only needs one flap of his wings to cover that distance, and even then not fully. Solix cringes a little as if he expects that this will go bad, but Karkat just nudges his head against Solix's cheek. Solix sits back a little and looks at Karkat in surprise. With his far bigger beak that could now certainly do some real damage, Karkat leans over and gently nibbles the very top of Solix's nose, and then bumps his beak against it, like a little bird kiss. Why did hitting him through a bookshelf help him, though? You wonder. Surely that can't be the recommended procedure for healing from this kind of thing. There's no way advice would have been able, or would have been... There's no way the advice would have been to drop kick Snake Solix off the roof to get him better right away, so it can't possibly be this good. It can't possibly be that this is good for Karkat. Maybe it was Solix's worry and remorse, being able to admit you did something wrong. Something of that has got to be feeding Karkat, Dave says with a shrug. What were you dreaming about? You don't normally wake like that, Dave says gently and kneels down opposite to him. Just... Solix hesitates. Karkat is preening his hair now. You've had a few since we started school, actually. Is it stress, or... Dave goes on. Something like that. Bad memories. The usual nightmare fuel I've told you about before, Solix says, glossing over it. You assume because he'd rather not divulge that in front of Karkat, or at least in front of you. What kind of bird is Karkat now? You wonder, trying to shift the topic a little. A white parrot, maybe? Dave suggests and reaches out to touch his beak. This seems to startle Karkat. Out of nowhere, a crest comes up over his head. You suppose that it doesn't come from nowhere, but it was so flat that you didn't see it. Underneath are bright yellow feathers that remind you of Karkat's halo. I take that back. A cockatoo that's like African gray parrot-sized. Somehow. Magical shenanigans, I guess, Dave says in shock, although you can already see him going for his phone again to take pictures. You're also more naked than you were before, you point out. Do you need to say it like that? Solix groans. Yes, his sweater must have come off when he upgraded his form. I hope it didn't rip, but I'm also glad it didn't strangle him, you say. Well, now I'm not worried about crushing my kinesis to death. Solix waves a hand at the books and suddenly clumps together into a neat pile. You figure that if Karkat had still been in there, it could have crushed him. As he sets the books down, you spy the gray fabric of Karkat's little sweater and pull it out. All the Velcro has popped off, and there's a few feathers stuck in it from presumably popping off his head as he got bigger. Although, perhaps he doesn't scale up like some terrible Animorphs book cover. Maybe it's just immediate, and anything would have been restricted and moved somewhere else. The only way you can find out is to get Kanai to make a bigger bird sweater and then follow Karkat around constantly until he changes again. Maybe it won't happen. This could be his final form. No, you don't think this would be his final form, upon consideration. As it happens, your mother takes Karkat's new form in stride. You're not sure if she always understands that the bird in her house is Karkat and that there's a reason for him getting bigger, or if she doesn't. She thinks it's perfectly normal for you and Dave to be owning an increasingly larger birds. With your mother, who knows? Despite her rigid rules about guests in the house and what is and isn't safe, she's a remarkably lax parent in other areas. One time she tried to buy you a pony because she somehow got the idea that you loved it. She was already ready to set up the stalls and the property and everything. You almost felt a little bad letting her down. You keep researching storm gods, even though you know you're not supposed to, but you can't just ignore something like this, and when you've seen what you've seen, it's not right. So you research. It's not really getting you anywhere yet, but it is meaning that you and Kanaya end up talking to each other at length, which is nice. Mom, what do you know about the gods? You ask as you sit on the kitchen counter, looking at the tapestry photos on your phone. You're waiting for the water to boil for your tea and trying to see if there's any details you might have missed. Too much. They're bad news, and I'm glad they're gone, your mother says vehemently and shoves the dishwasher shut. But let's say you were trying to work out who a god was from an artifact. You don't know where it came from. It just appeared, so you've no one to ask about its origins. What would you do? You ask. Not really my area of expertise. That was more my mentor's deal, Mom says with a frown. But you must have read plenty of his works. Humor me, you ask. Look at the material used, the style it was made from, any symbols on it, any writing, that sort of stuff. Take it to an expert. Your mom shrugs and starts hand washing a few things that couldn't go in the dishwasher. But if you only had photographs and not the artifact anymore, then how would you go working about the symbols? You press her. Then show the photographs. I'd say work out what the symbols look like. Some are pretty abstract, but some symbols are pretty identifiable. At the same time, they're unique to cultures and the time period too. Work out who use symbols, or who use similar symbols for that kind of stuff and when, she says, and sets a wine glass on the drying rack. Not that they're ever used for wine, but you still keep them in the house. Sometimes Solix pours Mountain Dew into them and drinks them that way for comedic purposes, you suppose? You open your mouth to ask where would be the best place to reference such symbols when you hear an improbably loud bird screech from outside. That doesn't sound like the kind of noise a parrot would make. Your mom's head jerks and she squints out the window. Well, that just isn't natural, she sighs. You try to peer out to see what she means, but your view is cut off. Instead, you hop off the counter and hurry outside. As you approach the source of the weird noise, you see a Karkat is indeed no longer a cockatoo or a parrot, but rather now a large, pure white peacock. That is so weird, Dave says in utter delight. Not really, it's closer to what he really looks like, Solix says flatly. You cut yourself off when you see it. Karkat has tail feathers fanned, which, given that he's looking at Dave and Solix, you shan't comment, but you're not surprised. What is surprising is that even though his feathers are white, the patterns on his tail feathers are not. The regular pattern of the peacock feathers are meant to mimic eyes, or so you read somewhere. This is not mimicry, however. On the snow-white feathers are hundreds of yellow and red eyes, but what's more unnerving about them is that they move. The red pupils of the eyes shift inexplicably on the feathers as you come close. His real form is covered in eyes. That's what he really looks like. It's okay, Karkat. Don't let their unrealistic beauty standards get to you. Solix grins. Karkat makes a loud bird screech and tries to bite Solix, who quickly jumps behind Dave, presumably under the idea that Karkat won't bite Dave, which seems to be true, but he can, walk around him. Eventually, Solix just floats up in the air with a smug grin. Can't get me now, he taunts Karkat. Can't peacocks fly, you wonder. With Karkat's current size, it seems unlikely, but Karkat normally is far bigger than that, and he can fly. Dave scrambles out of the way and watches the ongoing experiment with you. Turns out, peacocks can sort of fly, but not much or far, but by God's spite and goading does a lot for their lift. What's your bet for his next form? You ask as Karkat chases Solix around the grass. Emu, cassowary, ostrich, one of those. My question is, does it stop there, or do we get feathered dinosaur Karkat? Dave says eagerly. You remember his young teen obsession with dinosaurs. Now it's just spread to the remains of all things, but you suspect that dinosaurs still have a place in his weird heart. You watch as the sunlight glints off of Karkat's white feathers, and an idea comes to you. Why spend all this time trying to research sources on gods when you are your own source? You bid Dave a quiet goodbye and head back to your room. You lock the door and drag your mirror across the room so it reflects the light from the skylight onto your bed. You go to your laptop, put one of those stormy ambient playlists, and settle down onto your bed and angle your head so that your face is pointing right into the sunshine. Your eyes are awash with warm glow of the sunlight that you can't even block through your lids. You listen to the rain from your laptop and count your breath as you slip into a meditative state, all the time keeping in mind the statue, the tapestry, the symbol, and the god. You breathe. You stand outside a stone building. The rain is pouring down, but the moment seems glitchy and strange, like it's poorly buffering. A man flees outside with a tapestry in his hand. He is pursued by other men and several women. A blonde woman is trying to make peace, but a red-haired lady with her hair braided back elaborately makes a gesture at the man you know to be obscene. They're arguing about what is unclear. They're arguing, but about what is unclear. The tapestry seems to be a point of contention, but you understand that it's symbolic for the real subject of their argument. The man with the tapestry holds it up and gestures to it angrily, his fingers stabbing at the male figure woven there. You move around the crowd, now able to see the other half of the tapestry. Opposite the man you've already seen is a woman in the same clothes with a smile on her face and a similar mask in her hand. The revelers continue in a circle around the two figures as Kanaya predicted. They're drinking, laughing, and one appears to be tripping another up. The other men and women are trying to get the tapestry back off the man, but he's shaking his head and pointing angrily at them. You watch as he argues, and then when he gets to one word, everything glitches, like a bad video game error. His whole face becomes pixelated for a weird second, and then he's back to normal. He grabs a knife from his belt, and the crowd reacts in horror, but they can't stop him before he's cut the tapestry in two, severing the two identically dressed figures. The man starts to chant a name as he backs away, but whatever it is glitches and scratches over and over again. Then, he flees. Everything shifts. You're outside on a grassy mountainside with the younger Solux. He looks the age he has when you first met him, his features softer and his height so much less. For the first time ever, you're taller than he is. He's holding a slip of paper in his hand and frowning. Oh, come on, stupid. Who built a fucking temple all the way out here? Solux mutters and shoves the note back in his pocket before you can read it. You watch as he wanders about the mountainside, kicking rocks and jumping up and down on things, occasionally pulling the note out quickly to check. You wondering what he's doing until he steps back, and the ground abruptly gives way under him, sending him toppling down with a shriek of alarm. Rushing after him, you slide down in what is obviously a carved tube along the ground, and get into an underground cavern where Solux is rolling to his feet off of what appears to be a giant-sized whoopee cushion that self-inflates like some air mattress you've seen before. Predictably, Solux looks incredibly unamused. Okay, what's the list? Solux mumbles to himself as he pulls the paper out. This time you get a good look at it and see that it's basically an itinerary of everything he had in his void from this god. You get a good look at the statue before Solux finds it, but the face and nameplate are as glitchy as the man's face was. Ooh, yeah, that's not gonna work, Solux mutters to himself and blasts the statue into the form you saw it in. He tucks it away in his void and time starts to go a little odd. Like a time-lapse movie, you see him picking up some things in places and leaving others, consulting his list as he goes. Clearly these pieces were taken for a reason, but you don't know what that reason might be. It slows down again as he lingers in the room, scanning down a list and nodding to himself as he goes. Alright, no kill like overkill, but Solux mutters as he puts his hand into his chest and pulls out what looks like a giant bomb. Only this isn't a bomb like you've seen in movies, unless those movies are Looney Tunes movies. This is basically a cartoon bomb. Solux crouches down, touches a finger to it, and waits to see the fuse hiss, and then he's out of there. Thankfully, you're pulled with him, and you float invisibly in the air, so you can see a massive crater blown out of the mountainside. Solux whistles in awe as dirt and rocks rain down in a hole that's now hundreds of meters deep and wide. There is a rumble. You don't place it right away, only looking when you see Solux react. Snow is hurtling down one side of the mountain towards a small town below. Solux flings a hand out and you watch as the avalanche slows down enough that it's petered onto almost nothing by the time it gets to the town. Solux sighs in relief and vanishes. As he does, you awake. Jerking in your bed, you scramble for your laptop. You know the year you met Solux. You search the words for Mountain Explosion Temple and narrow the results to that year. You don't get anything for that search, but Google removes the word temple and flashes up a news story. Just one. Mount Curling in Iceland exploded that year and put a sizable crater in the side of it. Luckily, although the explosion caused a small avalanche, no one in... how the hell do you say that? In Akureyri was hurt. The article seems to debate whether or not this was a volcanic event. Iceland is a pretty volcanic place, but apparently that specific place was not supposed to be. Some seem to argue it was a gas explosion of some kind. Volcanologists argue for some weird volcano shit. A few witches put the idea that it might be some spell that had malfunctioned, as plenty of spells were doing at the time, but it doesn't look like anyone really concluded anything. The pictures of the exploded mountainside are just as you remember them. So the question is, why Solux spending the early days after the event stealing from very specific artifacts from temples and then blowing it up? It wasn't like he sold them or gave them away. He just hung on to them for years. Why do that? Kanaya, I just had a vision. The artifacts came from a temple in Iceland, in Mount Curling, but Solux took the findings from them, or from a list he had, and then blew up the rest with a comically shaped bomb. Comically shaped? Do you mean conically shaped? No, it was shaped like a bomb in a kid's cartoon. Well, Google does say that there was an explosion there. That is perplexing. Iceland is a little further out than I'd expected, considering, but it's still Europe, so we were close. Of course, it might not be where this god started, but still. I'm not going to get into the political nature of what is and not Europe, especially as Iceland technically is part of the Arctic Circle and not part of Europe or North America in the tectonic terms. Whether they participate in Eurovision or not is neither here nor there. I also saw the tapestry in full before it was cut in two. It showed a woman dressed the same way as the man. The exact same way. Yes, what are you thinking? It could be a sister god, like a twin perhaps. One would expect a wife or a god to be more distinct in form to show that they are different people. Alternatively, you could be dealing with a shape-shifting god like Loki. I suppose there are many gods that have multiple forms. The people in my visions seem to be arguing about it, like it was there, or like there was one word I couldn't hear. I wonder if it was the name of the god or something. Perhaps. I have never had visions, so I'm afraid I do not really know how to comment there. But it does narrow down the field a lot. It also winds it up in different ways. Research. Oh dear. Well, I will keep looking as well. Thank you, and make sure to write down what you saw in the document we share while it is still fresh in your mind. Good idea. Thank you, Kanaya. You dive into research and don't come up for air for a very long time. You start to narrow your focus of gods to Iceland specifically, which is a pain because you don't speak the language at all, so you have to rely on sources in English. When you got nowhere with that, you sidestep and take a look at gods with alternate genders throughout history. It's hard and frustrating field of study, partly because it's often hard to know what people mean with their writing and art from so long ago. There are tales of gods incarnating as different genders to do something or another, but it's not clear if this is meant to be some disguise by looking like a completely different mortal or an expression of who they are. It also isn't helpful when all this is taken through the lens of historians at the time, who have quite a set view on things. There are plenty of obvious accounts of same-sex attraction throughout history, and yet so many historians and archaeologists have been like, no, it's not gay, they're just friends. It's hard to be clear. Even in visual representations, it's not always clear-cut. In ancient Egyptian mythology, Hapi was responsible for the flooding of the Nile, and the carvings and paintings show female anatomy and male indicators like a beard. Are you going to assume that Hapi took both male and female forms, and this representation is like that animal heads the gods are shown with? Or should you interpret this with less binary views? As Solix pointed out, demons hardly conform to normal human standards, so why should the gods? It's complex. It is also 4 a.m. and you have a peacock sleeping at the foot of your bed, so maybe you should just call it a night and go to sleep. The next day, you look more into Loki and end up in discussion with Kanaya about Solix's possible motives for blowing up the temple. Destroying places of worship and people who follow a particular god is an effective way of cutting the power of that god, or even potentially eradicating them. Perhaps Solix was attempting to do that. If this god escaped whatever happened to lock the others away, then maybe he was finishing the job. It doesn't feel like that, though, and it's not really the sort of thing you can see Solix doing. Besides, he saved many of the statues and other items, and seemed to be following instructions. If destruction was his goal, he would have just blown everything up, not to mention there was no one inside but him. Something is going on here, but you don't know what, and you're more and more convinced that the storm god is involved with the clowns and Nara, and what with the whoopee cushion in the temple. You try to explain this to Kanaya, but she just asks you when the last time you slept was. Dave began trolling Rose. This is the most calm I can imagine myself ever being when I send you this message, but Rose, there is an ostrich in our kitchen. Oh, has Karkat changed forms again then? No, Rose, I managed to get an entirely unrelated albino ostrich into our kitchen because why not? It does seem a little unlikely, but not wholly impossible for you. Are you going to come pet Karkat or not? Because he is giant and fluffy. I will be right down. When you come downstairs, you find an empty kitchen with an empty bottle of nectar of the gods. You're mildly tempted to see what happens if you drink it, but it's pretty much all gone and you're not going to lick the thing. Ugh, even shudder to think about it. The kitchen is also absent of dumb boys and dumb birds. Taking a wild guess, you go back to the door and find Dave leaning against the doorframe looking at his phone. Before you can ask where this promised ostrich cat is, you see Solix zoom by in the distance outside, chased by the largest bird you've ever seen. Apparently, his eyeballs are larger than his brain, Dave tells you without looking up. I'm sure Solix would say that has always been the case, you remark. They also can't fly, which seems like a downgrade from the peacock form, Dave adds. If he turns back from this, he has to be going down in height, surely. Is this procedure working on body mass? Do ostriches even have hollow bones? Oh, good question. No, apparently they have regular non-hollow bones. He probably weighs more now than he does normally, Dave says. You watch as Karkat jumps to try to catch Solix and miss, kicking up a huge spray of dirt as he lands. Almost certainly, I know he's going to go back to normal soon, but... You pause. Karkat has stopped running. Wait, is he turning back? He's only been an ostrich for like 10 minutes, Dave says in shock. Maybe he also realized that this form wasn't needed, you suggest. Distantly, you see Karkat's all-white feathers flap up, and his proportionately tiny wings flap about. Solux draws closer in the air, seemingly wary that this might be a trap. Then, all at once, there's an explosion of feathers, and something hits the ground. You and Dave run over, and as you do so, you have the worrying thought that you've been teasing Karkat for being naked without his little bird sweater. But now he's going to be humanoid in shape. So does that mean... Karkat flails upright out of the pile of ostrich feathers, and you're relieved to see that he is dressed after all. But you've no idea what it is that he's wearing. At first, you're put in mind of the suit you've seen Solux wearing when he's in his largest and most intimidating state, but it doesn't seem to be covering his whole body. It just seems to be a single black garment, reasonably tight to the skin, that stops a little under the way of his underarms, like it's a strapless ball gown. You can just see a little red symbol on his chest peeking over the edge of the red-edged hem of his outfit at the top. Perplexingly, he's also wearing a cloak with a hood that's currently pushed back and resting most impractically between his wings. His feet are encased in black plain boots, and the whole look is thoroughly odd, but at least he's not naked, and he's humanoid again. "You're back," Solux says in delight and throws himself at Karkat. Karkat hits the ground with an oof and smacks Solux in the head with his wings on the way down, though who can tell if that was accidental or not. "Hey, how you feeling?" Dave asks him gently. Karkat opens his mouth and screams a human-sounding scream for the first time in a while, although it's thankfully at human-tolerable levels. "That's fair," Dave nods. Solux shifts back so he's sitting on Karkat's knees, and with a little effort in leaning on one wing, he pushes himself upright again. "I've spent all week being a successive series of birds. I was on the moon. Before that, I was a prisoner in a nightmare void. Then before that, I was illegally arrested because my friend betrayed me, and apparently now he's dead. What the fuck? What the fuck is how I'm doing?" Karkat says loudly and throws his hands in the air. "We got an awful lot of pictures of you," you add helpfully. Karkat groans, covers his face with his hands, and falls onto his back again. You look up at the darkening clouds above you in the sky and feel uncomfortably watched. Chapter ends! Bada boing! My god. My god, what an ominous sentence. What an ominous final sentence. What the hell? Well, ominous end of the chapter there, buddy. And a chapter, yippee. Oh my god, what a fucking chapter. Oh my god, Karkat's back. Next chapter, Karkat POV. Oh my god, it is. Oh my god, it is. Ah, lovely. Ominous end to the week. Yeah, though it is pretty, we concluded this little arc, so a pretty conclusive, nice ending. Or nice, little, you know, wrapping it up. Wrapping up this little mini arc. I guess it's less of a mini arc and more of a full arc. We got a lot of stuff with Rose, a lot of stuff with the conspiracy she's kind of trying to nail on. A lot of little things. Very, very cool. There was something I wanted to... I'm trying to figure out if this is supposed to be specific people, but I don't think it is. If people who know, and this is spoilers, if you can throw it in the AU channel in the Discord, because I'm not sure. But yeah, anyways, very fun chapter, very fun, and we've hit the halfway point more a few chapters ago, but we are in the fucking thick of it. Though this is kind of, I mean, we finished a little arc, but I mean, things are still everything with Rose is kind of trying to climax into something. We're building up to something, so we have a whole thing going on. God, I can't believe we're over halfway done. It's really crazy. I have read more than 350,000 words on this fic. on stream. That's crazy. That is wild. Probably almost 400k words on stream. Maybe a little less. We're going into the 4th book. Wow. That's crazy. Is chapter 25 where you ended your 3rd book? I guess it'd be nice. It'd be, again, that arc. They are, however, the longest books. Yeah, that makes sense. I wonder where your ender would be for book 4. There is something... Oh, some of these next chapters are pretty good. If I'm thinking off the top of my head. I can tell you who to do it, but it's a spoiler. You can DM me, or you can at me in the AU chat. And I'll peek there after stream. Realizing it's valid of me to say I'm pulling a Chris and reading fics out loud to my friends, so they'll finally read them, and it is somehow a very powerful feeling. Listen, that's how you do it. That's how you do it. It works. It fucking works by evidence. Though I think if I ever did do more fic reading, because I wasn't even thinking of doing like YWP, but we're like halfway through and I'm realizing that this is a fucking commitment. Now I'm committed to finishing Alternate Universe, but like, god damn. We're gonna be here for another like month and a half. Because I still find the several weeks of streams to be very funny because Chris went, so, I am reading you. Yeah. Yep, for sure. It is very amusing to me. So if I ever did do another like fic reading thing in the future, I think doing like Fall of Rome could be fun. And Fall of Rome, but the thing is with Fall of Rome is that it's only Fall of Rome. Yeah, Fall of Rome is like fucking a little shorty guy. I could knock this out in a fucking week if I wanted. Well, not in a week, but you know what I mean. 2 weeks. I was like, yeah, I'll read it first eventually. And Chris took that personally. You said, yeah, I'll read it eventually, like multiple months ago. And I was like, okay, listen. And I'm not blaming you. We all get busy. And sometimes, and like, the thing is that it's a fucking long fic. And it's also a fic of a fandom that you're not into, which is completely fair, right? Because again, commitment. So I was like, I'll read it to you. And you said, sure. And I was like, well, I'm not going to say no now. So now you're locked in. I was generally going to read it before I started Penumbra. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Penumbra took you over. It took you over. Took everything over. I need to get back to my Penumbra read. God, and how long is 22 seconds going to be? I have no idea. I haven't caught up with 22 seconds actually recently. Mostly because I've been playing Outer Wilds. So I just hasn't been on my mind. Maybe I'll catch up tonight. But yeah, I think that'll be the stream, y'all. I think I'm gonna end here. Went for 2 hours. Tomorrow's stream should be a little bit less because it's only 15k words per that chapter. But yeah, it was lovely having you all as usual. So I will talk to you guys next week, Monday. Not sure. Did I say tomorrow? I did say tomorrow. Today's Thursday. We'll be streaming Monday next week. We'll be doing chapter 26. So have a lovely weekend, you guys. I'm gonna go. I always say get stuff done. You guys know that's not true. I'm gonna go read fanfiction or be unproductive. Woohoo! And I will talk to you all later. Have a lovely, lovely, lovely night. Goodbye, everybody. Good night.